because we're good people. Doesn't mean we won't kill you. 5 of them aren't back in an hour. I'll put a knife in the base of your skull.
What's going on, guys? Matt back again with another throwback review from season 2. It's gonna be season 2, episode 10. Definitely, this will be in my top 10 episodes of all time. I know it's just a Rick and Shane pretty much all episode, but I love the words they have and the dialogue, and they have their first little fight scene and everything. But yeah, this episode is pretty damn awesome, and the title of the episode is 18 Miles Out. The episode kind of starts a flash forward to the end of the episode, which will end up coming back around to it. It is basically it's Rick and Shane. They're at some abandoned public workplace, workstation or something. Shane is fleeing from attacking walkers. He barricades himself inside a school bus. And then they show a nearby Randall who's bound. He's got his hands behind his back, but he's crawling towards a knife on the ground. And was the opening sequence before the credits, which is kind of like, what the hell? They just kind of threw you into it. So, of course, after the credits, they go back and they show what led up to this point. And it has Rick and Shane. They're driving down a country road. Rick stops the car short of the destination, 18 miles away from the farm, to confront Shane. Rick knows what happened with Otis, and he knows about Shane's affair with Lori. Rick asks Shane if he believes Rick is unable to keep his family safe. And, of course, Shane replies, you just can't be the good guy anymore and expect to live. And, of course, Rick responds, that is my wife, that is my son, that is my unborn child. I will stay alive to keep them alive. And then Rick opens the back of the Hyundai and to check on Randall, who's bound, gagged, and blindfolded in the trunk. Meanwhile, back at the farmhouse, there's a little bit of stuff at the farm. Back at the farmhouse, Maggie confessed to Lori that Glenn lost his confidence after the shootout at the bar. Tells him to man up. Lori advises her. Maggie attempts to leave to give Beth her lunch, but Lori insists that she do it instead. Back on the road, Rick makes plans for the winter, explaining that they have to conserve ammunition, stockpile food. Shane listens passively, staring out the window at a lone walker ambling through a field. Back at the farm, Lori brings Beth a tray of food. Beth asks Lori how she could have a baby in such a world, and she basically said, I don't have much of a choice. Rick drives past the 18-mile mark, looking to leave Randall somewhere he'll have a chance. He pulls up to a public workstation surrounded by a fence. A walker in a police uniform approaches. Shane draws his gun, but Rick stops him. Rick cuts his finger and wipes blood on the fence. Rick stabs it in the head, and he tells him guns are quick and easy, but there's other ways of doing this, to save ammunition and don't attract sound. The second walker in uniform approaches, and Shane, follows suit, gets his knife out. Later on, Rick siphons gas, and as Shane examines the policemen's bodies, noticing that they haven't been bitten, Rick points to the scratches. Maybe that was the cause of the transformation. Meanwhile, Lori collects Beth's lunch, which hasn't been touched. It's just so pointless, Beth cries. As Lori, clears Beth's tray, she notices a knife missing. She confronts Beth, who pulls it out from under the covers and hands it over. So now basically it looks like Beth's suicidal. She doesn't really want to go on. Looking kind of crazy for her. Back to Rick and Shane. They drag Randall on to the pavement. Rick drops a knife on the ground, and he and Shane walk away. Of course, Randall begs for them not to leave him, trying to explain he's just a normal guy. And then he says, I went to school for Maggie, for God's sakes. Of course, boom, Rick and Shane freeze, And then, of course, Shane declares he knows what the farm is, drawing his gun. Rick tackles Shane as he pulls the trigger, so the shot misses Randall. Rick argues that he needs time to think what to do. Shane counters that Randall could lead his people to the farm and accuses Rick of putting Lori and Carl in danger by sparing him. And then, of course, he says, I don't think you can keep them safe. And that's when the fight begins. They begin fighting and brawling. Meanwhile, while this is happening, Randall crawls towards the knife. Shane topples over a motorcycle under Rick, briefly trapping him. He goes to Randall and aims his gun, but Rick tackles Shane before he can fire. Frustrated, Shane grabs a big wrench and hurls it at Rick. Rick dodges the wrench, but it goes through a building window, which causes dozens of walkers to start pouring out. And this is kind of where the episode started. Shane flees, the onslaught. He gets into the bus. A walker approaches Randall, who cuts himself free just in time to kill it. Rick empties his gun as walkers pile on top of him, which is a really cool scene where he's like shooting through one's head to get to the other walker's head. It was really awesome. Back at the farm, Maggie scolds Beth for considering suicide. Laurie and Andrea listen in from the kitchen. Andrea tells Laurie that she shouldn't have taken the knife away. She has to choose to live on her own. Laurie counters that Andrea, she was also thinking about suicide that one time, but she keeps her mind occupied. Just sitting on the bar in the RV, working on your tan with a shotgun in your lap. Andrea accuses Laurie of, taking her blessings for granted. Rick and Carl both came back from the dead. She's pregnant, and she even had a romance with Shane. The rest of us have piled up our losses, but you just keep on. Meanwhile, Beth is trying to convince Maggie they should kill themselves together. She says, "I don't want to be gutted. I want to go in this bed tonight." Andrea enters the room, offering to watch Beth while Maggie gets some air. With Maggie gone, Andrea opens the door. She says, "The pain doesn't go away. You just make room for it." Back at the public workstation, Shane barricades himself, of course, in the school bus, like I said. Rick finds Randall, drags him back to the Hyundai. From the school bus, Shane watches as Rick and them abandon. Looks like they're going to abandon him. And then, of course, Rick goes and takes the handguns off the two dead policemen, unguarded. Back at the farmhouse, unguarded. Beth locks herself in the bathroom, smashes the mirror, and Laurie pries the door open, but not before Beth has cut her wrist. And of course, then she exclaims, "I'm sorry." Back in the bus, Shane is losing ground to the walkers when the Hyundai bursts through the nearby gate as Randall drives. Rick leans out the window, shooting walkers. Shane runs to the back of the bus and dives into the Hyundai. Back at the farmhouse, Andrea runs to the house after Beth's attempt to suicide. Laurie reports that Beth didn't cut herself deeply. She wants to live, Andrea proclaims. Maggie disagrees in anger and tells Andrea never to set foot near her or this house again. Back on the road, Rick and Shane restrain Randall and toss him in the trunk. Alone, Rick admits he'll likely kill Randall, but he'll still going to think it over. Basically, he said, "That's my wife, that's my son, that's my child." He repeats it like he said earlier. He said, "You want to be with us? You got to follow my lead." Rick gives Shane his gun back and says, "It's time for you to come back." Driving back to the farm, Shane stares silently out the window. Outside, a lone walker ambles mindlessly through the field again. So yeah, not too bad. I mean, it was a good episode. A lot of people don't really like it as much, but because it's just a center basically on Shane and Rick. But like I said, those are my two favorite characters, so I just thought it was flawlessly done episode. And like I said, the other thing that was in this episode was Beth attempting suicide and whatnot, and that little storyline going on with there. But so all in all, not too bad. Like I said, appreciate y'all checking this review out as always, and I'll be back soon with the next review. Appreciate y'all checking this out, and y'all have a good day.
Welcome to Woodburn.